You can finally hear me. Okay. At least we're not. At least we're not 45 minutes into this. Please confirm on the chat window, somebody. Yep, you can hear me. Okay. Okay. What I said was completely. I've been talking for about 5 minutes, and it was just completely irrelevant. It wasn't that important, you know. It's just. But let me repeat in a nutshell what I just said, and I just basically said, I hope everyone's safe. Coronavirus, tough times. Good time to maybe do some studying and do chores and tasks that you've been putting off for a few years. So first of all, I hope everyone's safe. Okay, that was the first thing. The second thing I had said, quite embarrassed by the fact that I didn't turn my microphone on. Been doing this kind of stuff for 15 years and still making schoolboy errors. So the second thing I was going to say was what I had said already. I just talked about the written exam. Good riddance to the written exam. I personally hated that exam, and I had failed that more times than I care to mention, which as a collaboration instructor, I probably shouldn't admit, but I just did. And then I had gone on to say that the CL, by the way, I'm going to guess that half the people watching, no, I'm going to go 90% of the people watching have failed the written exam. So I'm in good company, if not 100%. Okay. If you haven't failed the written exam, then kudos to you. Well done. It's brutal. I hated that exam. But now you've got the CL core exam, which is the MP core, the collaboration core exam for the MP. And I was just saying, you might as well go and get the MP if you haven't already got it, because there's only 2 exams for the MP collaboration now. And you just have to sit one of those, what are they called? Speciality exams. I can't remember the exact phrase Cisco have used, but you've got the core exam and one other exam. So you might as well just go and sit that exam, that second exam too, and get the MP. And if you've already passed the written, obviously you can get a lab date, providing the written hasn't expired. So you can get a lab date. Now, a word on lab dates. I don't think there's really any need to book a lab date, because when something's new, the CCIE blueprint's pretty new. It's fairly low demand. The demand is low, and you can get lab dates whenever you want. Compare that with like December, November last year, January this year, when people were trying to wrap up V2 before it expired. It was really, really difficult to get a lab date. So then it's different. We're in a different time right now, different position, where version 3 is brand new. I'm going to guess you can get a lab date whenever you want, give or take. All right. So I wouldn't book a lab date. I would just wait till this virus is hopefully passed and people, testing centers, Cisco offices are beginning to open up, and you know, you can fly safely and travel safely to the testing center and do the exam. I don't think that, I know you can sit NA and MP and other exams online now. Cisco did that maybe a month ago now, where you have to have a webcam and certain requirements on internet access and stuff like that. And you can sit and all these exams online, but I don't know if they're going to do that for the CCIE. I don't think they will. I think it'll be too difficult. I don't know if anyone is Cisco is on here, but I really doubt they'll allow you to do the IE lab exam online. It needs to be proctored. You're spending an awful lot of money, and it's 8 hours, and there's a lunch break, right? You can't just carry your webcam with you when you're having lunch. So I don't think they're going to be able to do that online. So we have to wait for the testing centers I'm looking down here just for the chat window, making sure we've got no other audio problems. So it seems like we're good. So we have to wait for the testing centers to open. Now, when will the testing centers open? I don't know. I know in California, there's rumors that Google and Facebook are going to enforce, and you know, unless it's essential to be in the office, they're going to enforce working from home till December 2020. I know Cisco have I think cancelled shows and external meetings till October 2020. And they're trying to figure out which staff need to go into the offices and which ones are okay working from home. So I don't know when the testing center is going to open. That's out of our hands. In the meantime, this webinar, I'm going to begin to tell you what you can do to start preparing so you can hit the ground running when that testing center is open and you can sit the lab. Okay, so let's go on to version 3. What's new and differences? The design has replaced the troubleshooting and diagnostics. Obviously, the design section, I haven't seen it. No one's seen it, and I'm going to attend Cisco Live and see if they talk about this at all. The design section. I've had little chats here and there offline but you know, it's completely new to me as well. I can have a guess what they're going to do. I'm going to come up with a couple of examples at the end of this presentation. So the design section is a 3-hour module. We'll talk about that in a bit. There's no physical phones. There's only the clients are Java for Windows and WebRTC. I guess WebEx Teams can be a client as well. But at the moment, on the Cisco Learning at Cisco discussion that's taking place, they've said that Java for Windows and WebRTC are the 2 clients. Obviously, WebRTC with a registration to the web bridge in Cisco Meeting Server, and Java for Windows obviously registered to the UCM. No 8845s. That really annoys me because we bought 24, was it 32 8845 phones last year, and obviously the resale value is not very good. So that really hurt me when they removed those 8845 phones. They can go in the pile next to the 7965 and 9971 phones. If you need any phones, by the way, just let me know. Just send us an email, 8845, 9971, 7965 phones. I'll give you a really good price, okay? No virtual Unity Express. Thankfully, I never licensed these in version 2. I just used the evaluation license because they were expensive. So no virtual Unity Express, no CME, although that was only really in the diagnostic section anyway. It wasn't really, the virtual CME wasn't out at the time, and you couldn't actually go hands-on the CSR 1000V and configure CME, telephony service, voice register global. But anyway, that's gone now. CMM is there. Cisco, what does it stand for? Cisco Meeting Server, Cisco Meeting Management. I've got a video on this already. I think it's 12 minutes. I won't be doing any more videos. It's not a big deal. It just helps you manage your meetings on Cisco Meeting Server. So I don't know if they're really going to test on that. I don't know who's using it. I don't think anyone's using it. I may be wrong. You guys are in the field a lot more than me. So the Cisco Meeting Management, anyway, I've got it in my blueprint. You don't need to license anything there. As long as your CMS is licensed, you can install it as a virtual machine, and it's pretty cool. You can, manage meetings, invite, kick people out, that kind of stuff. It syncs to your LDAP, your Active Directory. I've got a video. Yeah, the video's already out there. It didn't take me long just to spend a day on that. Contact Center 11.6 was in the old version. Now it's 12. Actually, I'm going to admit, I've installed it. I've got it working, licensed. I haven't actually gone in and configured it yet. So I don't know if there's Contact Center is the last thing I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to guess it hasn't changed at all. 11.6 to 12, it's just changed the numbers. If you know of any big changes in Contact Center 12 versus 11.6, please let me know. But I haven't really done anything. I've imported the version 2 videos into the LMS, and I've put a disclaimer in there. If I need to update it, I will do very shortly. And that goes with Unity Connection 12.5 versus 12.0. All the other Cisco appliances were 12.0. Now they're 12.5. So Unity Connection is another one I've got a low priority. I would definitely prioritize this lower than the others. Contact Center and Unity Connection should be lower priority on your radar. Whereas Core Manager and IMP 12.5 has a big, there's a few things in the chat there, but not too much. So yeah, Core Manager and IMP 12.5 is a big deal, I think, because who loved creating those Java config XML files? Did you enjoy that? Creating those open XML tags, close XML tags, and uploading it to the TFTP and restarting the TFTP, and that was a really enjoyable process. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. That's gone. You don't have to do that anymore. There's a UC service you can attach to the service profile, which is attached to the end user. And so that's pretty cool. And so Java being your only client now, or your predominant client, you probably should enable SIP URI dialing, because URI dialing and ILS, intercluster lookup service. So remember the enable policies, enable SIP URI dialing. That's what I've been doing every time I've registered my Java to Core Manager 12.5. But that was really nice to see that. I don't know if there's too many other differences other than security related differences. One thing I forgot to put in Expressway 12.5. We're going to talk about Expressway in a little while in my sample design question, but Expressway 12.5 versus 8. Whatever it was beforehand. Windows 2016 server, it's the same as Windows 2012 R2 as far as we're concerned. We've got an Active Directory pre-configured with some users. We've got the certificate authority on there. We've got some A records. You're probably going to have to create an SRV record, Cisco UDS, and Collab Edge on the outside DNS server. Windows. So, yeah, I'll probably just pause one time to time and look at questions. And I've got a question here, which is, I think, quite relevant right now. My concern about the home lab, as I don't have a big budget, I think maybe to run a few virtual machines instead. I definitely think, yes, it's getting cheaper to buy servers on eBay. It definitely is. But if you still have a budget and it's difficult for you to get, or how many virtual machines are there? There's probably about 20 virtual machines. You need a bit of memory there. You need some CPUs. I've got a video in my LMS where we talk about what kind of server you need. If you can't, then just don't worry about contact center in Unity. Just forget that, right? And you can just run. You don't have to have Windows 10 as a virtual machine. Just run your Windows 10 machine and use that as the client and run Jabber on there. Core Manager is your big one, right? Get Core Manager, get CMS. If you can get, getting 3 core managers. Forget about the pub and sub on HQ. Just get the pub, right? Try and eliminate non-essential virtual machines, and definitely subscriber core manager at HQ is non-essential. You can just have a standalone core manager there and a SME, and so getting 3 core manager clusters is important. Get ILS, global dial plan, and then really Expressways would be the next most important thing on the lab, I would say. So in terms of prioritization, okay, I know we're just talking about the virtual machines there, but in terms of prioritization of virtual machines, I definitely think 3 CM clusters. One in the middle is SME, Site B, and HQ. That's number 1. You got without core manager, you can't really do too much, and that's your internal routing going on. Now we'll talk about the backbone in a bit, but getting your expressways. See your traversal, firewall traversal, expressway CNEs, critical, very core, very central to the exam. CMS, I envisage to be very prominent in version 3 as well. Okay, and the CMS, because we haven't really talked about that, this is 12.5, as is most of the appliances over here. CMS was 2.2.9 in version 2. CMS, it says on the Cisco website 2.5, and the same goes with meeting management over here. It says 2.5. So so there's a little asterisk there. If you go on the Learning Network at Cisco site, it says if it's depending on end of life and the sale, we may change this version. And 2.5 and 2.6 is end of support, end of maintenance, I don't know if it's end of life, but definitely end of support. So I've chosen not to run 2.5 in there. I'm running 2.8. Okay, I would install CMS 2.8. What's the difference between 2.5 and 2.8 with what we're doing? Not a lot. Everything we set up in the web bridge, the web admin, the core bridge, the XMPP, with the WebRTC clients, virtually the same. So I don't think there's any need to. I would just bypass 2.5, put 2.8 in there in your lab. Those are the essential virtual machines. If you can't run 3 core manager clusters, a couple of expressways, CMS, 1 CMS, those 6 virtual machines, I'm assuming you can run your client PC and your server somewhere else. Then you need to have that. You can't just have 1 core manager. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with 1 core manager? What are you going to do with just the Expressway C? Right? Not too much. So, yeah, I think we can talk off. You can send me emails, vic@collabcert.com or info@collabcert.com. I can help you on a case-by-case basis. If you give me your budget, and I can try and look on eBay for you and point you in the right direction. And licensing is also difficult too. You need NFR licensing. God, getting NFR licensing with now most things are using smart enabled licensing as well. It's difficult. It's difficult to they make it challenging to build your own lab. Okay, I spent a month, 6 weeks building my own lab, version 3, and I built the V2 lab as well. So version 3 was still difficult with licensing. Okay, I guess I wasn't the highest priority. I wasn't the highest priority during coronavirus and people getting WebEx licenses and stuff like that. They didn't prioritize my not for resale license. Okay, I get that. Okay, iOS XE, vCubes, a couple of CSR 1000 Vs. Whoops, 1000 Vs. Yeah, you need a couple of those, and they don't take much resources. No licensing, nice, and it's quite easy to get those. Now, last bullet here. I said here earlier that design replaces troubleshooting and diagnostics. Well, is there no troubleshooting in the lab? From my experience, been doing this since 2005, 15 years, the candidates sitting in the labs are very good at creating their own troubleshooting scenarios, inadvertently. So yes, you are still going to have very good troubleshooting skills. You are completely going to have that. You know, who sets up MRA first time without any problems and gets it working from the internet PC? Right? There's always something you forget. So you still need to have very good troubleshooting skills. And also there could be embedded troubleshooting. I can say this now because CCIE Voice is now obsolete. It's gone. But in CCIE Voice, they had in some labs embedded troubleshooting. So they turned off CDP advertised V2. So the phones wouldn't pick up the voice VLAN. And they had some problems, maybe some SIP. Grab this SIP method, grab this SIP event and put it in Notepad. So there will potentially be embedded troubleshooting in that second section, which we'll talk about in a bit. So troubleshooting skills are still very important. The diagnostic section, I hated the diagnostic section. There were 5 questions and it was really difficult. It was like the written exam all over again. It was like, oh God, I just did the written exam to get here in the lab exam, and now you're giving me 5 new questions from the written. Okay, so I really didn't like that. So that's gone. Okay, but troubleshooting is still very important. Sample topology. Now, talk about building. You can't build this on your MacBook. Well, maybe you can. There's a $50,000 Mac these days. You can spend $50,000 on Apple's website. So there's a sample topology. That's just, in a nutshell, very similar to V2. HQ site is the predominant site. You've got the core manager cluster. I've got a HQ pub and sub there. The LMS, I've given you all the IP addresses and everything like that. The credentials, how to build your own lab is one course I've got in my LMS. I've got CMS and CMM over there. I've got the Expressway C inside the enterprise. I've got a couple of vCubes for redundancy. Unity connection, IMP, contact center. I've got a SME, which is logically in the middle of the the SME is really logically in the middle over here, but it's IP addressed at the HQ enterprise. The 8845 gone, just a jabber. HQ PC. This is HQ PC. This is a very important virtual machine, and it's running Windows 10, not Windows 7. They used to have this as Windows 7 in version 2. Now it's Windows 10. Much nicer. So with this PC is pre-configured with a lot of tools. Translator X, RTMT is pre-installed. Firefox with all the favorites, all the tabs, so you don't have to type in the IP address to access an appliance. Maybe autocomplete for the username password. You don't have to keep typing that in. So there's a multi-tab PuTTY with a way to CLI into all the appliances and vCubes without having to set up your PuTTY sessions. So this PC is pre-configured, and me setting this PC up, try and set your PC up in the same way. I've got a few extra tools in there like SOAP UI, just a little bonus tool so you can run SOAP Axel queries to Core Manager, because SOAP UI, a Postman's another very important one. Get your RESTful APIs to CMS and potentially also Core Manager. So this headquarters site is the predominant site. We have an Expressway E on a different, pretending to be out on the internet. This is all simulated internet over here. And then we have this public network. This public network has a DNS server, Windows 2016 or Windows 2012 R2. It doesn't matter. If you've already got Windows 2012, already got that licensed and configure. Just stick with it. Don't bother upgrading to 2016. There's no need. So 2012 R2 is just fine. And we've got this Windows 10 machine in public network, which is running MRA, and potentially you've got a WebRTC client there using turn capabilities on Expressway E. So the public network is only there generally for MRA, potentially turn from WebRTC. So two tasks. Let's go down to the Site B, very small site there. There's a Site B PC over here, which is a clone of HQ PC. So all the things you had on HQ, you probably have on Site B as well. You can putty from here. You can Firefox from there. We've got a core manager over here, and potentially, I haven't actually done too much with this yet, but having some kind of, communication inter a cluster to the presence over here. So I haven't done any videos in this yet, but this is something I'm looking at, potentially having some kind of federation over there. Not particularly difficult. I had that actually in collaboration version 1. I did some videos, but I didn't do them for version 2. So this IMP is optional, I think, right now, but definitely core manager and a PD there. Site C, this was predominantly used in the troubleshooting section in version 2. I can say things like that now because version 2 is bye-bye. We just have a PC there. I don't have a third core manager, internal site. All these 3 sites here, okay, that's another clone. These three sites are configurable by you, the candidate, by me, as well as the public. Okay, so 4 sites. This 5th site, the backbone, is pre-configured by Cisco, learning at Cisco. They have, and I'm going to talk about this backbone right now. Let's just talk about the backbone. Here's my backbone. I've got a backbone PC, Windows 10, which is not a clone. We can't putty in from there. We can't really do much. Just Jabber. Just a Jabber for Windows running on here. 12.5. So Jabber 12.5 is also very important for active control. So when you call into CMS, Cisco Meeting Server, you have something called active control, and you can control meetings in a neater way. Okay, so that's new in 12.5. So it's very important that you run 12.5, not 11.9 or 12.0. 12.5. All the Jabber for Windows is running 12.5. So this backbone PC has a registration to a backbone core manager, yet another virtual machine. So if you're building your home lab, maybe getting increasingly more difficult. And obviously that's 12.5. Now the backbone, so if you make a call, the idea is we're going to call my HQ or B Jabber for Windows client. How do we call into that? We're going to go to this backbone Jabber for Windows client. We're going to call in whatever number it might be, 10-digit dial, 7-digit dial, URI, I don't know, 11-digit, whatever it might be. This routing is already set up in this call manager. It sends the call to a backbone vCube. The backbone vCube is hard-coded or set in the dial pair to forward the call to a destination. In my case, it's going to be my headquarters vCube. And I have redundancy over here, so I have a second HQ vCube, and I'm sending it to the virtual IP address on this side of the vCube. There's 2 interfaces on the vCube. There's the external, the backbone side, and the internal side. So my backbone call manager, when I make this call in a very specific way for my Jabber, will send the call to the backbone vCube, which in turn sends it with a specified caller ID to a virtual IP address that you have to set up. You have to set up this stuff here. Otherwise, you can't make calls going that way. Okay, so that's my backbone. So my backbone has 1 PC, 1 core manager, and 2 vCubes. 4 virtual machines running there. Again, if you're trying to minimize on virtual machines, then you can really, what can you do? You can, I guess you could just not even have the core manager here. You could just have a CME router here, or you don't actually, this call manager literally has one endpoint registered. It seems like a big waste for you to have this call manager installed and licensed just to have one Jabber and 3 route patterns. Okay, I've got a question on programmability. Just so I'll come back to that one. Okay, let's just, what are we doing for time? We're 10:30. I was trying to do it in an hour, so hopefully I'll be done by 11 Pacific in 30 minutes. Module 1, design. Now, you can't navigate backwards. So if you go from question 1 to question 2, you can't go back to question 1. And it's non-continuous. So it's not like, register a phone, make that phone make a call. That's a continuous lab. That's module 2. Module 1 is non-contiguous. So you may have MRA question, and then you go to a CMS question or WebEx Teams question. You can't go backwards. So you can't see the score as well, the point allocation for each task. A lot of it's drag and drop and looking at topologies and drawing arrows and stuff like that. Drag and drop as well, like you get in the written or in the MP. It may be multi-choice as well, may be requiring you to type something in. And if you, I guess, now this is my guess here, this last bullet, this one over here. If you finish within less than 3 hours, I don't think they're going to make you just sit there and twiddle your thumbs for an hour. Let's just say you finish after 2 hours. I think, to be confirmed, that time when you end section, you'll get that time over here in this section here. So just like the troubleshooting section in version 2, if you finish that earlier, that time was given to you in the next section, in the configuration section. So if it's less than 3 hours, if it was 2 hours, you finish in 2 hours, then obviously this becomes a 6-hour hands-on section. So that will be the goal for you, to try and finish this design section earlier. I've got some examples of design section questions in about 3 slides. And when we talk about the additional focus on programmability, what does that mean? This term brings me on nicely to section 2 here, module 2. It says deploy, operate, optimize. You got to think. I think this terminology is basically copy pasted from the route switch, which is now what's it called now? The enterprise. What's the route switch called again? Enterprise core, something like that. The enterprise exam. So a lot of this terminology may not be specific to collaboration. A lot of the syntax that you see in the Learning at Cisco webpage. But when you say, someone's asked me about enterprise infrastructure, thank you. When you talk about programmability, I'm going to guess we're going to look at APIs in Core Manager, in collaboration. Okay, when we talk about programmability, RESTful APIs, SOAP Axel queries to the Core Manager, SOAP APIs, looking at WebEx REST APIs as well. So that will be the programmability. I think you need to be familiar with APIs a little bit more than we have done in the past. Things are going away from GUI-driven tasks to more automated and running scripts from Python. And so REST APIs using Postman's the tool of choice, is very important. This section regarding deploy, operate, optimize, I don't know how relevant it is specifically to collaboration. It's more the enterprise infrastructure. They copied the syntax. I think this is going to be just like the configuration lab. Maybe with some embedded troubleshooting, grab this. Well, that was already there, to be honest. Grab this SIP event where early offer is being, for example. Programmability, it's got to be the API side of things. Maybe they give you a tool and maybe the Axel toolkit. You need to download that and then maybe run an API query to add a phone or add a partition or do something like that. So you should be familiar with the Axel toolkit that you can download from the Core Manager. Be familiar with how you then can generate a SOAP Axel query to Core Manager from Postman. I've also included a tool called SOAP UI, which I don't know, if you've run API queries to Core Manager, then you probably are familiar with this tool. This is designed for Axel queries. Postman is designed for your REST API queries. So you can run SOAP Axel queries using Postman too, but it's a bit more difficult. So in terms of programmability, I think that's where we're going. Okay, that's where you'll have to have familiarity with this. Oops. I've got some, yesterday I bought some acoustic panels from Home Depot, and I stuck them up with double-sided tape, and they're all falling down. So that's why we're a half an hour limitation, because I think they'll fall down within an hour. Okay. Now, I'm not going to really give you examples on this section, because it's just going to be a bunch of tasks like we have in the lab, in previous labs, 70-point lab, continuous tasks. Don't do them in the order that they give you the tasks. You can have visibility of all the tasks in one go on a web page with all the point allocation, and then maybe you can do it in a different order, do it in the order that you want to do it in, that makes sense, rather than the order of the tasks. That's very different from the version from module 1, the design. You have to do it in their order. Okay, so module 2, just I don't think much is going to change. If you are familiar with version 2, the lab exam, the config section, I think, you keep sharp on that. I'm going to guess here, the structure and format of that config lab will be what module 2 is derived from. Okay. Design. Okay, here's a sample design question. The session will be recorded and posted. I'm not gonna work this weekend, so it's gonna be Monday. Okay, I'll post it on Monday. I'm gonna have the weekend off. So design section. What can you do? This is if you're studying right now, the workbook lab, going through labs that you may have seen in the past, will probably prepare you well enough for that. The design section, where I've steered my LMS a little bit. Okay, so design section, what you could do is look two sections of documents on Cisco's webpage. That's not COVID, it's Cisco validated design, is that right? Validate, but the preferred architecture documents and the SRNDs. These are the two documents. Now there's thousands and thousands of pages, so you're not going to just sit there tonight and read them all. Okay, you can use them as a library. And you, obviously, if you haven't already got them, you buy my products as well, our products too, and obviously that's also going to prepare you well. But I'm just trying to make it, if you just go on Cisco's website, these are two sets of documents. Cisco Live's coming up. Cisco Live's coming up, and it's online only, and I think it's free. It's free for everyone. So what you could do is try and I'll come back to Cisco Live and which sessions I'm going to plan on attending, but you can go on Cisco Live and look at some of these sessions that are going to be recorded or streamed from May 31st to June the 4th, something like that, at the end of this month, end of May. So definitely want to go and look at some sessions and make use of that. They're all recorded too, so there's an on-demand library. You can watch those. Very, very good. Where you hear the TME speak and look. This is going to be good for design. I don't think those Cisco Live sessions are any good for config. They're not going to give you some tasks unless you actually go for one of those paid sessions for eight hours and you do a lab. These Cisco Live, when a TME speaks, he's not going to show you hands-on configuration, but it's good for design. Okay, so here's an example design question. And I'm sorry you haven't got the ability to answer this, but I'm going to give you just where I'm going to steer, where I think the design is headed. Let's just read this together. I'm going to read it out loud. Draw the media path between two Jabber for Windows 12. Obviously, the wording will be different, more expansive. Two Jabber for Windows 12.5 clients on the internet that are registered to UCM 12.5 using Expressway 12.5. When? Okay, there's three. So these will probably be three different questions. 1, without ICE enablement. Okay, so ICE is something new. ICE pass-through is something new called interactive connectivity establishment. So this is my standard media path for MRA. So here's my MRA clients. They've got a firewall in their homes or their offices. They're registered. So we have a registration. Okay, we have a registration from, let me just change the color. They're going through here. The registration is to the call manager here. Okay, then we have a call between the two. So show me the media path. Okay, they're registered to call manager. What is the media path? The media path is, I'm interested to see if anyone if anyone, well, let's just, I'm going to just give you the answers rather than, you're not going to have the opportunity. But you should be thinking, what is the media path? Is it that? Is it that? Is it that? Whoops. Is it this? Okay. What is the media path? Where does the media flow? Standard media path for MRA. So the answer, at least in my book, and this is where these design documents will really help you, right? The answer will be, the standard media path is you're using the back-to-back user agent within the expressway C, and that is your media path. They don't talk together, okay? So that will be the answer. Design document, maybe you're going to have to put an arrow. You have to put arrows or somehow draw it from just what I've done in yellow there. You'd have to somehow on there. No, the expressway it's going through the expressway C. The standard media path uses the back-to-back user agents on expressway C. Okay. Now going down to the second bullet there, with ICE enablement, but the endpoints cannot support direct media. So this new feature in 12.5, well, it's not the ICE pass-throughs new. We'll come to that on the third bullet. But the second bullet here, the media path will be that. So you'd have to draw that somehow on a web browser inside the Cisco Testing Center. And then with ICE, and this is the point of ICE pass-through, the back-to-back user agent or the turn. So the second bullet here, we're using the turn features, the turn capabilities of Expressway E. So it's important there that Expressway E is configured with traversal using relay, what does turn stand for again? Relay NAT. Traversal using relay NAT turn. So the second bullet there, it will go through the Expressway E. And the third, which is the whole point of it, is that you have the two clients, if they're able to, can talk directly to each other without having the call flow through the Expressway E or the back-to-back user agent on Expressway C. So that will be, you need to be familiar with MRA deployments, Expressway, some of the features there. That will be a sample question. I'm going to be putting this in my lab. Talk about my lab in a second. This is just full disclosure. Copied from Cisco's documentation, obviously. So that's in the deployment guide for hybrid calls. Now, before I go into this question, why is the design section? What's the real value of it? One of the problems with the CCIE historically is it hasn't really reflected real-world deployments. You've got a lab environment, and you'll be the first to admit, I think, the lab environment doesn't really reflect. Whilst the skills and the same tools are there, the same dial plan and stuff like that, it doesn't reflect what happens in the real world in terms of scalability, size. There's no design side of it. That's been a problem that's been addressed by version 3 of all the blueprints, version 3 of collaboration. So one good thing about if the design section is important for what's happening in the real world, then we can't ignore the shift to the cloud that's taking place in collaboration networks and collaboration tools. And so central to that for Cisco is clearly WebEx Teams. How does this relate into the CCIE blueprint? I think the hybrid models, both calling in WebEx Teams using Call Manager and the traditional hybrid calling, is very, very important. I would think maybe not day one, maybe in 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, but if they don't, well, they is Cisco, learning at Cisco, if they don't have questions on what every Cisco SE and what everyone within Cisco is really, I would say, pushing quite a lot, WebEx Teams as a client, then something's gone wrong, right? They have to incorporate WebEx into the CCIE blueprint. If they just have a CCIE collaboration blueprint that only has on-prem devices and they ignore the cloud, then what? Then something's gone wrong. Okay, so I'm gonna bet they will have WebEx Teams questions in the design section. It would be very hard to administer the WebEx Teams registered in the cloud and also registered to the Call Manager in a lab environment within the CCIE blueprint. It will be very difficult to administer. So I'm going to guess maybe they don't have WebEx Teams in the config section. but they have to have it in the design section. Okay, so I've steered my LMS very heavily towards API because of what we talked about earlier, programmability, and to WebEx Teams hybrid deployments. So the question here, let's just take a look at this design. I didn't spend too much time on this design question, so I think I have to draw a few things on here. And Alice and Bob, you read all the documents, you must be familiar, you must know Alice and Bob very well. Okay, Alice is using WebEx Teams outside the enterprise. So Alice is over here. Bob is using WebEx Teams inside the enterprise. So let's say Bob is registered over here. Bob WebEx Teams. Bob also has an 8845 desk phone. So let's put an 8845. In fact, let's just draw the desk phone over here. So when Alice, so hybrid calling, so not WebEx Teams registered to call manager, not the newer thing, the older hybrid calling with the connectors, where you need the connector host. If you're not familiar with this, go through my WebEx Teams hybrid calling videos. But this, and I go through a live demo of getting all this set up on the control hub, getting this connector host installed. But this call connector is just like the middleman between the on-prem and the outside. And so this is not used for signaling or anything like that. Okay, this is just to get it all set up and create these. Remember these Spark RDs? This WebEx team here is what's known as a Cisco Spark remote destination. So let's just go carry on with this question. Let's just assume, does it say this? Hybrids, what header in the SIP invite method from the cloud? So the cloud's making a call will be used. So when Alice calls Bob, Alice is calling Bob. So Bob's WebEx Teams is registered, okay, into the cloud, not through the expressways, just going over the internet. So Bob's WebEx Teams registered to the cloud, and also we have a remote destination as well inside Call Manager. So the question is, when Alice calls Bob, the desk phone and the WebEx Teams are both ringing. How does the cloud will send an invite? I'm going to draw this here. The cloud will send an invite going through there, obviously, an invite method. How does the expressway route it? Through, obviously, search rules to the traversal zone to expressway C. And how does expressway C send it to the neighbor zone of the Call Manager cluster? What is used by the expressways to get that desk phone ringing over here? This guy here. What's used? Type it in. Anyone know it? Type it in. What header? It says what header? And maybe there will be a multi-choice, so you just select one. This will be a multi-choice. But I've not given you the options because I ran out of time preparing this slide. Anyone have any idea on that? Go ahead. Yes, there's a correct answer. It's this invite over here contains, normally when we talk about routing calls, SIP calls, we're looking at the request URI header. That is used by Call Manager traditionally to route calls. Okay, the request URI. But the expressways use ahead of the request URI, the route header. The route header contains the cluster name. It contains the cluster FQDN from the Call Manager here, which is given through the connector, okay, given to the cloud. So the cloud will add in the route header of this invite the cluster FQDN, which can't have wildcards. And if you have multiple, it will be the first one. So let's just say HQ cluster. The route would have HQ cluster coming into this invite. We'd have a search rule for HQ cluster to send it to the traversal zone. Expressway C would have a search rule, HQ cluster, to send it to the Call Manager, not the MRA zone, to send it to the SIP trunk and Call Manager, not on port 5060. So it's the route header is what we're looking at, okay? And so we need to be, these are the types of things that we need to be familiar with when we talk about hybrid. Okay, let's go dig beneath the surface. What's going on? Let's look at some traces. Okay, so getting everything set up is quite easy. Getting the configuration set up in the cloud on the control hub doesn't take very long. But how the hybrid is working and operating is something that's important. You have this Spark card. Let me just go a bit deeper here. You have this Spark remote destination. So when you ring, let's just clear this up a little bit. Clear that up. Okay, let's just say we've got this call going in on the cloud through MRA, and he answers on the desk phone. Let's just say Bob answers on the desk phone. The call, not MRA, through as a hybrid call through the expressways. MRA is the new WebEx Teams registration. Okay, so this traversal zone over here is not MRA, just to clarify. Okay, what happens is both clients ring at the same time. But the problem is there's a Spark remote destination, okay, that will route the call outbound to the cloud. But the WebEx Teams already ringing. Let me draw the WebEx Teams for Bob in a different place, make it a little bit clearer. This is going to be a little bit clearer here. We've got the 8845 here, and let's just we have a cloud registration WebEx Teams here. So Alice calls Bob. Bob's WebEx Teams ringing. What I'm saying is the phone here is also going to ring too. Okay, that's third time's a charm. Okay, so both the phone and the WebEx Teams client of Bob is ringing right now. The problem is Call Manager will match on the Spark remote destination. The call is going to be sent back out as a B2B call, I think. But we don't want to. Bob's WebEx Teams already ringing. So WebEx needs to know that this call has already been answered. It originates from the WebEx cloud already. Let's drop it. Let's ignore it right now. We can't notify Bob's WebEx Teams again because he must be already ringing. I originated the call, I being the WebEx cloud. So we have this call type equals squared. That invite that came in with the route header has call type equals squared. And that's how WebEx knows that it originated the call, and it will not notify Bob's WebEx Teams again. Okay, this is just to give you a little flavor of the types of things we need to be familiar with in the design section. How is this hybrid call working properly? What are the call flows? What's the media path? So the media, let's answer question 2 over here. Clear this diagram up. What's the media path when Bob answers on his WebEx Teams? Well, the media path is just that. It doesn't go in the enterprise. Okay, assuming that if Bob is physically located in the office, so let's just put Bob over here again, moving Bob around quite a bit right now. He's over there again, and let's just remove that guy there, and let's put Bob registered here. Okay, now what's the media path? It doesn't go through the expressways. The media path is you're going through the cloud. This is over the internet. So the media path is just going through the firewalls to the. It's not a using traversal zone. Okay, it's just registered to the internet, right? Bob's WebEx Teams. So the second question there: show the media path when Bob answers on his WebEx Teams client. Is that not that? Okay, show the media path when Bob answers on his 8845 phone. Now it's that. Now it's going from the cloud through the expressways, firewall traversal to the phone, to the client over here. Okay, so these are 2 types of. I'll give you 2 questions here that I'm going to have in my lab, my first lab when I release it. This is the kind of knowledge that you'll be doing. I'm going to guess this is the kind of stuff that's going to be in the design section, and I focus here obviously on the cloud side of things. I'll try to talk about hybrid call in a 20-minute webinar or a 20-minute section of a webinar. Let me move on to the next part I want to talk about. So my LMS, many of you already purchased it and got it, so thank you for doing that, and I'll try and not disappoint you. Currently, this is the state of affairs of the LMS. Okay, some traditional sections, intro, forget that. It's just me, just looking at me. And then building a collaboration version 3 rack, how to build your rack. But most of these sections, please watch them top down. So those sections, not really related, but Protocols, this is where we look at some of the SIP methods. I'm going to put the talk about the route header and the squared, call type squared in there as well. Jabber for Windows, I'm going to get 12.5. I've re-recorded all that and got the XML files done through the GUI. And this is where we talk about that programmability. What I've done is I've got REST APIs, SOAP Axle queries to Core Manager using Postman and also using SOAP UI. But I thought one thing is when I did these Postman calls to Core Manager, adding a partition or a CSS, well, what use is it? I've run the tool in Postman. How can I practically use this in real life? So then I just started digging around, how to get it working with a Python script. And so there's a very good session on Cisco Live, Paul Geralt, brilliant session on SOAP Axle APIs. Definitely recommend you watch that one in Cisco Live later on if it's available. Okay, so I then talk about just getting, for a layman like myself, not really from a very strong developer background since 1999 anyway. And so how to get Python set up on my computer, how to get some code imported on GitHub, installing Python, installing pip, installing other things that you need, and getting some code. Python's about not creating code, it's copy pasting and stealing people's code. I think a guy in the DevNet video said that. I stole that from him, Hank. Brilliant set of videos on DevNet. But I've given you a quick 2-hour intro to Python and how then we can use those RESTful APIs and use Python code to send the API to Core Manager to do what you want to do, create a partition, add a phone, whatever it might be. So this section here, if you're not from a developer background, probably need to watch it a couple of times. I say you play along, go along with this. You just need one Core Manager and you need a computer for yourself. Obviously, you have that. So you just need to have a Core Manager and a computer to do this. And I suggest you do this by yourself and get Python installed on your computer and have some familiarity. I know most of you guys may not be wanting to go down and become developers, but have some exposure to it. Good thing for your resume, good thing for you in this current day and age. Next, CMS. Now, CMS, I know we're at 11 o'clock right now. I just need 10 more minutes because that first 10 minutes I was speaking to myself. CMS, now the config section, module 2, the deploy, whatever it's called, optimize. I've got the single combined. Okay, so I think that's probably more likely in the lab, in the hands-on tasks, a single CMS server. But I also have catered this, and there's a few other features like recording, active control, a few other things as well. But what I've done is I've steered this. I ended up having 8 videos. I don't know how long it is, maybe 6 hours, 5 hours of videos, where I have, for the design section, they're going to make you do a design section on CMS. Surely they're not going to be using single combine because you're never going to deploy single combine in a real world CMS deployment. It would always be with scalable and resiliency. So I've got a ton of videos. I spent half of March recording and learning myself about the scalable and resilient deployment model where we have 3. You can have 3 or 5 CMS servers. So I've got 3 CMS servers. And I've talked about how we get our core bridge clustering and how we get our web bridges and all the other components, database set up, and XMPP servers redundant as well. And so this section over here, I don't for a minute suggest you build 3 CMS servers in your own lab, but I suggest you be very familiar with scalable and resiliency. In version 2, you didn't need to know anything about scalable and resilient CMS deployment models. But in version 3, you are definitely going to need to know this because in the design section, they will ask you about this deployment model, not the single combine, which is going to be covered in the lab, in the config section, hands-on section. So Expressway 12.5, again, I've redone all the videos in Expressway. If you're just familiar with MRA and B2B calls and stuff like that, not a whole lot has changed. So this section here hasn't really changed too much from V2. ILS and global dial plan. There's a new set of bugs. Remember the old set of bugs in 12.0? We've got a whole new set of bugs right now in 12.5. I'm still trying to navigate through those, but I've redone all those videos in 12.5. And vCube troubleshooting, how we match on inbound dial pairs, DPGs, dial pair groups, and URI, incoming URI. A lot of it's taken from V2. I'm going to be having ILS working through the vCube. So I'm going to kind of join, these two sections are going to be quite kind of related. It's intended that you watch these videos top down. Okay, so in this order. So again, I'm eager. I know time is running out. I've said I'd be done 3 minutes ago. I've redone all the videos for PSTN routing. If you're familiar with version 2, how we get calls from a leaf node sent to the SME, sent to the vCube, to the backbone, and back again, it's more or less the same. These two sections, I guess, are going to be very important for the design section, maybe not so much for the configuration, the deploy section. So I've got the older traditional hybrid calling and a hybrid message set up with the core connector, the connector host, and you can follow along. If you can either have an org created in WebEx yourself to do this, or if you have some kind of sandbox with the DevNet and have an account there, you could use that as well. I just created an org myself and spent the $39.99 for 2 users. You need 2 users. Okay, so I just did that, and then I integrated it with my core manager, put my core manager cluster expressways on the internet as well, behind the firewall, obviously. And then I just went through and you can do these modules with very little expenditure. You don't really need a home lab. You just need a core manager. Okay. And, obviously the control hub, the stuff in control hub and WebEx. But I believe you can get an account on a sandbox environment if you email a specific email address at DevNet. I think you need to go on DevNet to find more information there. Or you spend the $39.99 while you're learning it and then just cancel it. Go back to the free account. So yes, very important that you have the privileges to go on admin.webex.com and configure all that stuff. And these sections down here, so I spent most of the new stuff in the version 3, I think, is specifically in the design section, and obviously the CMS section down here. And this is very intensive on Expressway. So Expressway the knowledge of Expressway is very important inside here. We talk about hybrid. Expressway's going to be key to that, the traversal, firewall traversal. These two sections I haven't really looked at in version 3 yet. Maybe I'll do that before the end of May 2020. And QoS, again, I've got a sneaky suspicion that when we look at designs, maybe we need a bit of QoS knowledge. We didn't really need too much in version 2, but I've imported this from my V1 videos, full disclaimer, that was recorded in 2016, I think. And we've got, tail drop and classification and marking and that policing, that kind of stuff, remarking. And I don't suggest you do any really lab tasks here, but familiar with QoS, Campus QoS, Cisco QoS for our design section. So hopefully I've given you some hints on what to do for the design section. Get familiar with the hybrid, get familiar with QoS, get familiar with WebEx Teams calling registered to core manager, and get familiar with, some API stuff. That will also be in the config section too. Again, for existing customers, I told Mike, I'm always disappointing Mike. I tell him Friday the 8th, and then he tells you customers the lab's out Friday the 8th. Then I just tell Mike, it's Friday the 15th, and then he has to disappoint you. So he's the fall guy here. So I wanted, obviously, with this webinar, I got distracted a little bit. I want to get this my first lab out with a design section and the lab section by next Friday. Okay, that's what I'm working on right now. I may not be drag and dropping. I may be more basic than that, but the technology will be the same. And we do have some boot camps up, but again, who knows whether it's in person or not? Definitely, this is not an in-person boot camp, online only. Who knows about September? Who knows about December, right? So I've got some boot camps. The workshop doesn't make sense unless I was live and kicking. So if that workshop, if the testing centers aren't open by then, I'll cancel. We're going to cancel that workshop because the workshop is really designed for last minute prep when you've got a lab date within a month. and I don't think it's any value if the testing centers aren't open and we're running workshops. If the COVID outbreak is fixed and things are opening up, then maybe we'll add things in November and December and October. So at the moment, this is our schedule. And any questions, things like upgrades, there's our contact details, info@CollabCert.com, at CollabCert on Twitter. There's a phone number. Thank you for attending the WebEx. So, not the WebEx, the webinar. I'm just going to stop my sharing here.